Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Redeemed Marriage Podcast. This is Rusty and Heather Bryant, and we're excited to be with you. It's been a fun week. You know, I listen, well, people know part of the reason why I say hello, folks, because it's a shout out to my boys from Nate Land and Nate Bargatze, my favorite comedian. And so they always start off and they go around the room and they talk about where they've been, where they've been out of town and where they were, what comedy club they were in. And then
they also talk for 2 hours.
They do. They talk for 2 hours. But then they say where they're going to be, you know, coming up and stuff. And so I was like, hey, you know, we can do that. So I don't know. I thought it'd be cool just to, for a second, tell where we have been and where we're going to be coming up. So this last week we had a great time with 3 other couples last weekend at our retreat in Atlanta. Just an amazing time, 3 amazing couples, and then went straight into a marriage intensive. And look, I'm going to tell you, if anybody out there has ever considered a marriage intensive, please go to our website, theredeemedmarriage.com. Check out the information about our different locations where you can do that. I mean, it was this past week was just incredible, just loved the time that we had with this incredible couple, and so it was a very busy week, and then we came back and. I mean, nobody knows when we're really recording this, but we're on a little bit of a high right now because it's the NCAA tournament. We're huge sports fans. Heather's a big Alabama fan. I'm a big Ole Miss fan. Earlier this evening, because this is Sunday, Alabama punched their ticket to the Sweet 16. And then just moments ago, I mean, this is late, guys. But I said, Heather, we are watching this because for only the second time in history, Ole Miss is going to the Sweet 16. So we're really excited.
I'm so happy for you.
Thanks.
And if you are not watching on YouTube, you can see, let me just give you the visual. We have on, he has on his Ole Miss hoodie and his SIP hat.
Welcome to the SIP,
and
baby.
So many people don't know what that means.
Hey,
SIP.
But we know.
That's
the
right.
people that matter know.
That's right. Welcome to the SIP.
So yes, it's been a fun weekend watching our teams win, and so we're back, we're home. It's been a long 10 days or so, but a great 10 days. You have this raspy voice.
Yeah, sorry.
Did you yell a lot?
No, freaking pollen.
Okay.
I just cannot. I do this every year when pollen comes out. So I'm sure everybody's like, oh, please stop talking and let Rusty do all the talking.
Nah.
But I'll add a little bit here and there.
It's fine. So real quick, here's where we're going to be, though, coming up. We're excited. We actually have another intensive coming up in a couple of weeks. And then we get a chance to actually go to WinShape over in Georgia. And we're going to be a part of some training that I'm excited about. We don't really know exactly, but we kind of got invited to it. We're excited, looking forward to getting some training because we just love learning. But then here's the big one. If you are anywhere near the Lake Placid, Florida area, I mean,
I was going to say anywhere in Florida, but it's a big state.
It is a big state, but we would love to see you. If you're in the Lake Placid, hey, grab because I don't know the exact date, so grab your calendar real quick. Yeah. But we're going to be in Lake Placid, Florida for a one-day conference. It's actually going to be from 9 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. We will break for lunch, but it's on Saturday. April the 26th. This is 2025 in case some of you are listening to this later. Don't show up in 2026 if you're listening in the future. But April the 26th, we're going to be down in Lake Placid, Florida. It's a free event, so it's at their community center. And isn't that right? The community center is where it is. But we've been posting some stuff, so you can find that on social media. And if you have any questions, just reach out to us. through any of our social media or on our contact form or whatever. We'll give you more information. But
yeah, you said where we were gonna be going, and I thought the big one was where I'm gonna be next weekend.
you're gonna go check out one of our locations where we do an intense where we've never been.
I'm so excited.
Yeah,
where
yeah.
we've never been.
So
for
our
an
Florida
intensive.
location. So Heather will check it out for
I'll
y'all.
check it out and let you know how
She'll
great
break it
is.
in
That's
and
right.
break in the beach for you. All right, so today, here's where we're going to go today. Let's say where we're just going to go for today. We're not even going to talk about April, just
right.
today. So today, here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about boundaries, which is one of the most talked about topics for sure at our retreats, our intensives. I know we'll be touching on it as well at our conference that's coming up down in Florida. But boundaries are such a huge part of marriage. And the other day, somebody reached out and said, "Hey, I know there's been some podcasts on boundaries. Can you give us a link?" And I went in, hey, there's this great search tool on our website. If you go to the podcast page of our website, there's a search bar and you can actually type in boundaries and it'll pull up all of the episodes about boundaries. But I noticed, I was like, whoa, it's been a long time, almost 2 years since, and I know we talk about boundaries a lot, but it's been almost 2 years, and it wasn't even then, it wasn't just specifically about boundaries. So it was more of how do you balance being jealous and having boundaries, and kind of what's
that was a good one.
jealousy versus boundaries. But we just came off of talking about boundaries, and we did something a little bit different at our retreats this year, and we've categorized our boundaries, so they're really easy to kind of throw all the boundaries inside these different categories. So we want to go through that with you today and just let you guys know some of the boundaries that we have. We have major boundaries, extreme boundaries, and they were put there after infidelity. They should have been there before infidelity, but we obviously did a poor job there. And so they became a really, really big part of our marriage, and they haven't changed.
Right.
And I think that's an important part of this.
Yeah. And, when I think back on boundaries and why we came up with them, it's real easy to say after broken trust why you need them. But it's also super, super important to know that if we had boundaries in place, we would not have been as easily, we wouldn't have easily that's hard. We wouldn't have easily stepped into sin if the boundaries had been there. So if you're listening to this and you're like, well, we don't need those boundaries because we've never walked through infidelity or we don't have broken trust, it actually can prevent you from breaking that trust. So if you have not had broken trust in your marriage yet, then you're preventing that. You're helping prevent that. If you have, then you are rebuilding trust. You're rebuilding safety in your marriage, and you're trying to keep from there being future hurt. So there's many, many, many reasons for boundaries.
Yes. This is for every marriage.
Every marriage. We even got told this, I got told this past weekend that some friends of one of our kiddos listened to it, and they're not even married yet. They're listening to it like as what can we do to get ahead of the things that can happen in marriage. So super proud of them for that. All right. So the first area.
Well, first of all, let's quickly just talk about, I mean, you just told why boundaries matter and why it's important, but I know that we have a couple of quotes that we always like to open up this part of our sessions with, and I just think those quotes are really important. So you can read it. You have your glasses on. You can read them.
Boundaries are not about control. They are about protection and trust.
Because I think a lot of people, when they hear boundaries, they just think control.
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't want my spouse controlling me. And so boundaries, we ain't going to talk about it. We're not going to do it because I don't want to be controlled. But the reality is it's not about control. It's about protecting something that's valuable to you, something that's important, and it's about trust.
Yeah.
And building trust. And when these boundaries are in place, it's just easier to have trust and to build trust.
Right. Yeah. And the other one that I've already touched on, healthy boundaries build emotional safety and they prevent future hurt.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah. All right. So the first area is interactions with the opposite sex. No alone time with opposite sex friends or coworkers. So this is just super important to, if you work with somebody or if you have couple friends, you don't want to have alone time with someone of the opposite sex. Right. It's just like, even at work where I work, we don't have many men that work there. But anytime I'm going to have a meeting, or if someone from the opposite sex comes in and has a question or anything like that, I always step out into the hall or make sure someone else is in the room. It's just, or at the very least, if you're in a little office, make sure the door's open. Like never shutting the door and having alone time.
Yeah,
there.
it's just kind of being really public, really out in the open, just to not ever spend any time alone.
Yeah. And it's just not even given the appearance of evil.
Yeah.
All right. The second one is keep conversations with the opposite sex professional and brief.
Yeah. And we talk about that a lot, is just not moving into the personal conversation space. So, even if you get an email or a text that it is business, or maybe from a coworker, or it's something that's just I need to ask you a question kind of a thing. Where you start getting a little bit of a gray area is when there's like the, hey, how was your day? Or I hope you had a great weekend, and you respond with the, oh yeah, it was a great weekend. Let me tell you what I did.
Or worse than that, man, I had a rough weekend.
Yeah.
Me and my spouse. I mean, you can so easily get into discussing what is wrong, and then the other person feels like they need to help with that, or not only, not just that, but the other thing would be to say, oh yeah, I'm having trouble too. And then you've got that common thread. It's not good. So if somebody responds, if somebody sends you an email and they're saying, hey, how was your weekend? It's okay. It's okay to be kind. Great, thanks. So and then move on to or whatever.
And we're speaking of times when the interaction, with the text and the emails are unavoidable. We're gonna talk in a minute about how to do your best to even avoid those, or to put even more boundaries up. But really, it's the conversation. And I even think, I think you might have even said, keep your conversations and your, emails and things like that. But these are conversations one-on-one too.
Yeah.
That's probably even bigger too.
Sure.
Is like, you just don't want to make an emotional connection with someone from the opposite sex.
That's right.
And as you start talking about things at home, or just anything personal, kids and things like that, it just starts putting you into a connection area that you just need to avoid.
Yeah, that's right. This one seems, to some people, it's going to be extreme. No rides alone with someone of the opposite sex. Yeah. So if you're like going to lunch with a group of people, great. If you're going to lunch with just, someone of the opposite sex, you need to have somebody else there, and then riding together. You just don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, you can... Sometimes it may feel like it's something that's going to hurt feelings, or it's going to be awkward. But the bottom line is, if your marriage is important and worth protecting, it's worth a few awkward moments and a few hurt feelings along the way.
Yeah. Digital boundaries.
Okay.
Let's talk about those.
Okay. So digital boundaries, this is kind of your phone, your email, social media, which first of all, complete transparency in all of those areas.
That's right.
There's no passwords that your spouse doesn't know about for sure. We always stress that anytime that anything needs to be looked through, it's free reign. It's free reign. And sometimes some of that is just leaving your phone available, not keeping it in your pocket all the time or hidden all the time.
Carrying it into the bathroom.
Yeah, it's just, hey, it's wide open for any time. And so it's just complete transparency.
And you would be surprised how when there's complete transparency, there's not such a desire to look.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if I know there's no password, or I know the password, I know you're not hiding anything. But what happens so many times is it just gives the idea that you're hiding something. Yeah. If you're like, I don't want you to know my password. Why? Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. And social media, I think it's a big one just because people are scrolling all the time and you've got opportunities to communicate with people. And so it's just being really transparent. I know there's a lot of people that they actually have joint accounts just so they can kind of keep up with family and stuff. And so, there's there's even more extremes than even what we're talking about.
Guys, you would not believe how many people we talk to where this is how things start. Yeah. It's not like we just made these up out of the blue. Like there are so many circumstances and so many instances where that's how things start. Like I connected with an old friend on Facebook, or I was texting with somebody, or it's so easy to start down that slippery slope when things are hidden.
And I'm probably going to step on some toes here and offend some people, but if you're on social media and you find yourself chasing a rabbit hole or chasing
you're either chasing a rabbit hole or going down a rabbit trail.
Chasing a rabbit or going down a rabbit hole.
There you go, maybe.
Okay.
Something about a trail in there
Either
somewhere.
way, if you're just diving deeper and deeper into someone of the opposite sex, into their life, by looking at pictures and things like that, you're on that slippery slope.
Yeah.
The other thing is if you are deleting or hiding messages of any kind, you've already crossed the line.
That's right.
You have. You've broken trust if you're doing that
if
for
you're
any
like,
reason.
If my husband read this, he may not, or he might get the wrong idea.
Yep.
Well, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Don't delete them.
No, that's right. Show your spouse. Be transparent. Be open. If you get a text or a message from somebody that you feel is a little bit uncomfortable, that's what we're talking about. Like, don't delete it or don't respond to it and then delete it. Oh, I don't want him to see it or her to see that. No, that's when you show them.
Yeah.
And you say, hey, I want you to know this, this was said or this came through. I didn't respond, or how would you like for me to respond, or should I respond? That's just a big part of the
just
transparency.
Complete transparency. That's right.
Yep.
I think one of them we have is that if you need accountability software, so if pornography or, anything like that is in your story at all and you need some accountability, you get people to walk alongside you. There's software out there where if trust is broken, or if you're on a site where you shouldn't be, it emails your guys or your girls or whatever and says, hey, check in. And it's just a good tool to just help keep you accountable.
Yeah. And the thing is, we haven't struggled in that area as far as like the pornography and stuff like that. And so we're not up to date.
Sure,
and our kids are older now. And so we're not up to date really on what's the best software and things. But
for you and your family.
Right. But we met a bunch of marriage ministry leaders in that area that have that and know those things. So we could pass you along and put you in touch with people that know that better.
Yep, that's right.
Let's talk real quick just about, we sort of did, but really work setting and social settings. This is when you're just around members of the opposite sex and you can't really avoid it.
Yeah.
So, we talked about especially being mindful of coworkers that are opposite sex and having meetings that are alone. Lunch meetings. I mean, we just there's no chance in the world we would ever go out on a one-on-one lunch meeting with somebody from the opposite sex. Period.
Yeah.
And I remember my sister lives in Jacksonville, Florida, and I remember she came into town not too long ago, and we went to lunch one day, and I felt it was weird, and I felt awful. Yeah. And it's my sister, and I remember,
but nobody knows her,
right? And people were coming up, and I was like, "Hey, this is my sister. Like, this is my sister, my sister. Hey, everybody, my sister." But it's just no chance we're doing that, and I know that some people have. You have to have lunch meetings and things like that with members of the opposite sex. Take somebody with you.
Yeah.
There has to be. And there just can't. I mean, I don't know. I know there's pushback from people out there listening, but all we can do is tell you these are the areas that we had a tendency to really mess up, and we will never mess up.
That's right. And not only we, but
other people.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, we hear it all the time, and we'll just look at each other or tap each other like, here it is again. Here it is again.
Yep.
Here it is again.
Over and over.
That's right.
Same things. There's a pattern when we hear it, and they all are related in some ways.
That's right.
Social gatherings. I think this is an important one to talk through for just a second, because I know that you really struggled in this area some, but just when you're in social gatherings with members of the opposite sex, being really careful to not gravitate towards the members of the opposite sex. And I know for you, that was, and there's people out there, we hear them all the time, that I just make friends better with guys, or I make friends better, with members of the opposite sex. I enjoy sports, and I don't want to be in the kitchen with everybody, and I'd rather be watching the game and things like that. We understand that because we've lived through that.
Right.
But if it's just, again, you're making connections and you're making these emotional connections, and it's better, just suck it up.
Yep.
And you've even said before, you can hold your phone and watch the game in the kitchen with, and we're not stereotyping at all.
Well, I just have vivid memories of certain groups that I would go and sit with the men in the, where the game was on, because I was genuinely interested in the game, and the women were in the kitchen talking, and I just stayed out there, and instead I should have been in the kitchen, prop my phone up on something so I could see it playing in the background. But it's not, I don't want to be with the women. I was missing out on opportunities to connect with them.
Yeah.
And instead I was connecting through sports with men. And the only men that I should be connecting with through sports is you and my boys and my dad.
Well, if you find yourself wanting if you're in a social setting, and you're wanting attention from someone of the opposite sex, then you're wrong already.
Yep.
We've even talked about this, even as you're getting ready to go to a social event, if you're thinking about what you're going to wear, because maybe it's not even someone specific, but you're thinking, I want the guys that are there to think that I look nice, or, the girls to think that, you're already crossing a line.
And I don't know that I've ever said this before to you, but I can look back and remember those times where I would go and watch the sports with the guys, and I can remember loving when they would say, "Gosh, I wish my wife liked sports. I wish my wife liked to watch football." And even though, in most cases, I wasn't genuinely seeking that, it couldn't help but make me feel good. Oh, well, and my husband lucky that I like sports, and that's just not a good train of thought to be in. And again, I look back and think, gosh, what missed opportunity that I could have connected to those women and built relationship there. But instead, I was focusing on first what I really liked to do, which was very selfish in watching the game, but then also loving the attention that I was getting because I liked sports.
Yeah, and we also say, I mean, obviously, you're never going to. No one should ever flirt at all. Period. But even like in social settings and just being in public and having those awkward times of touching or hugging, a member of the opposite sex, and we try to avoid that. We really do. But sometimes you're hugging and you do the side hugs, and it just sometimes you're just doing that respectfully, and but you just are careful, and there's not going to be a lingering anything. It's just being very respectful there.
That's right. That's right.
So
it is. So this next part is one that I've been recently really passionate about, and it is being intentional about what you watch and what you listen to. It can just be super easy to go down a path of wrong thoughts and wrong desires. If you're watching anything that helps you or makes you desire someone besides your spouse, or to even think, oh, I wish my spouse had that or looked that way, or it's just dangerous. And it's the same thing with what you're listening to. I'm a firm believer, and I'm a firm believer in this because it literally says it in scripture. But what you put in is what comes out. What you're pouring into your heart, in your mind, in your eyes, all in your ears, all of those things. We used to sing a song with our boys. You remember when they were little? Oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see. Oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see. Why am I singing with this voice? Oh, for the Father up above is looking down with love. Oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see. Thank you for helping me. And we did it with, oh, be careful with little hands. Oh, be careful with little ears. Oh, be careful, little mouth. Like you have to be careful with what you're putting in, because even if it's in secret, our Heavenly Father knows. And what we're putting in is eventually going to come out.
Yeah, and there's so many things right now on entertainment and TV that's just trash. I mean, it really is. And especially a lot of, and we're probably offending people, but a lot of these reality shows that are just, I mean, there's nothing wholesome and good about it. Well, and people will say, oh, but it's just for fun.
Yeah, reality shows, the relationship ones.
Yes.
There's Survivor and all that. Yeah. But like The Bachelor and things like that.
Right. Yeah. And people will say, oh, but it's just fun. And we can, it's hilarious and it's good entertainment. But what you're putting in is just desensitizing yourself to those things, and it just puts you a little bit closer to the slope.
It makes it normal.
Yeah, it normalizes it.
It normalizes it, which is definitely where I was. And I could even watch it and go, that's trash, or I'd never do that. But it just starts to normalize multiple partners.
Yeah, you get numb to it.
Yeah, and it's like, well, they're doing it, or the world's doing it, or why do I have to be different? It desensitizes is a really, really, really big word.
Well, and we've talked before just about how there's, movies and television shows when they're so focused on sexual things, it's such a huge turnoff to us now. I think before we kind of just laughed it off and didn't care, but now it just really, it triggers, it means something, and we just try to avoid it.
And we were even with some friends this past week, and they recommended a show, and I loved it because they said, there's one little, just watch it with your remote control in your hand. You know, I mean, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're like, you know, it's a really great show, but there's this one thing, just be ready for it. And if you're not, if something like that comes on, zip, 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 fast forward.
It was funny because I said, oh, I started watching that show, but I don't know why I stopped watching it. And then I went, hey, can you look up and see if there was a sex scene in it? And they did. And they were like,
we just zipped through it.
First she said, no, it's great. It's great. And then she went, well, hold on. And she looked it up and she was like, yeah. And well, that's what happened. I mean, I saw it and I was like, I'm not watching this.
Yeah.
But it was probably because also I wasn't watching it with you.
Me. Yeah, you were by yourself.
And so you know, when we're able to watch things together, we've got the remote and we're just ready to blow through it.
One of my favorite core memories of you with the boys is introducing them to Tommy Boy for the first time.
Tommy Boy
and you had
Christmas Vacation.
And you had the fast forward button in one hand and the mute in the other. It was like,
gotta do what you gotta do.
Right.
But they still have to be educated in the good movies. Okay.
I love it.
So
honesty and integrity. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
Be the spouse that you would want to be married to.
That's right.
Just
That's right.
honesty, integrity, keeping everything in the light.
And don't ever get to a point where you're like, oh, we're doing so good. We can let up in some of these areas. Don't let up. There's no reason.
Yeah.
Last thing, real quick, and we're going to close with this. If I know some people are thinking, they're like, how do I talk to my spouse about this? Because it's going to feel like it's a control thing. And really, without getting into too many details, the conversation that you have with your spouse is not, I'm trying to control you, or I want, you know, I it's not this checklist of don't do these things anymore. It goes back to the whole, it's not about control, it's about protection and trust. And really the conversation is, hey, this is the most important thing to me, this relationship, me and you, and I want to do everything we can to protect it. So what are some things that we can do and agree on that we're going to make extreme boundaries so that nothing ever messes this up?
That's right.
And that's the conversation.
That's right.
It's not, hey, leave your phone out so I can look at it. It's having the positive spin of, this is so important to me that I want to make sure we protect it.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
All right.
That's a good word.
We'll be back with you next week. And thanks for listening. See you next time.
Peace.
Peace.